Welcome to our classroom. It's Debbie and Margie from SimplySpecialCrafts, and we're here to share installment 2 of Santa and Friends from the 2020 Hunkydory Craftaganza set.
It's a cute one.
It's a cute one. This next set might look familiar to you because we get a class in this one. But we can't discriminate. We have to have all card sets from this collection represented. So we're going to once again show you Together at Christmas, which is the Snowman Juggling Penguin set. I think this thing's adorable. I totally love it. Here we've got 2 really big toppers, and we've got 2 moderate sized ones and a bunch of little tags. Nice border piece. Here we've got 2 really nice borders. We're going to make really good use of both of them. All the cute little penguins across the bottom and this beautiful foiled snowflake across the top. We've got this wonderful Santa with his paw up, and we've got, is it a hand or a paw on a snowman? I think it would be a hand.
I think it's still a hand. It's
a
mittened hand.
A mittened hand, that's a good way to look at it. And we've got this pretty border across the top here. Let's take a look at what we did with this one. Okay, starting, we used one of our 2 larger toppers on this corner piece, although I turned this corner, no, how did I do that? Yeah, how did I do that though? There it is. I did it this way. I cut it from there. And I covered a 5x7 card. I do believe I may have cut this down just a little bit. This may end up being a 6.5 by 5, but I started with a 5x7. And I did the typical punch out the border, lay the center track down flush with my card, put foam squares under both the middle piece and the outside ring. I put this little sentiment hanging off of the frame with a foam square underneath to hold it up, and I just didn't think it needed any more than that because it was adorable. Next up, here's my second large topper. This time I used one of those new craft style cards that we've recently introduced, and I made a center step easel card out of this one. I covered my cardstock with this, let's see which paper, with this paper. I actually turned this upside down so I could retain my snowflakes, and I covered my card from here. So I've got these purple snowflakes. They're really not directional. It just feels like they are when you look at the cardstock. So I actually built this topper here up on a piece of cardstock first before I cut it out to go on my card. And the reason for that is because I didn't want these little rings hanging over the edge and just being kind of floppy there. Mm-hmm. So I built this topper set onto a piece of cardstock, cut it out, and then put it on my covered card. I put one of my pretty border strips across the top of here. This is a really nice way when you're cutting out your easel card. Occasionally you can kind of nip into things a little bit as you're cutting this out. So if you have any irregularities at all across the top of this piece as you're cutting it, it's a really nice way to hide any of those under this border strip. So this border strip can go higher or lower depending on whether you have anything you want to kind of cover there.
Good.
This one, I wanted a greeting here, and I didn't have, by the time that I got all done, I had used all of my other pieces, so I used a little piece of this cardstock here. I just cut it out, and I added a Merry Christmas greeting to this one. I think this comes off of the Trees set. Yeah. This little Merry Christmas here, and I did take a little bit of purple ink and run right around the edge to kind of give that a finished look. I used one of my Hunkydory ink pads for that. And then I took the remainder of my piece of border. Now I've already used this much, but I was able to clip that remaining piece in half, and I only need to have border where it actually shows. So I have a little piece of border, and then I have my tag, and I have my tag and a little piece of border, the remaining border down here. I created my stopper for my card by using a piece of these sitting penguins, and I just measured that off to where I would have full penguins.
They are so cute.
They're so cute, and it just works so well on this juggling penguins to have more penguins sitting at his feet. I used my Easy Peely Christmas sentiment inside, and I just think this card turned out adorable. It's one of my favorite of the season. I really, really like this one. So cute, and surprisingly easy to do. There's a few steps, but it's surprisingly easy to do. Actually, I'm glad you did that, Margie. As Margie's folding it up, I had one customer who asked me, is this card mismanufactured? Because you see how the bars come down a little bit lower than the face of the card? They've done that to reduce the bulk right here in front so that this card will still fold up nicely. So that's not mismanufacturing, it's made that way on purpose. Okay? But it will fold up really nicely to go in the envelope. Next up, we have another one of those techniques for using a small topper and making it into a bigger topper. I used a piece of my background cardstock from right here and a European A6 card. I used a piece of the snowflake border from up here. I just trimmed it and brought it down. And then I used some purple mirror board. It's from Hunkydory, I believe. And it just was a piece I had in my stash, but I'll link Hunkydory mirror board in the newsletter so that you can find that. But I cut 2 equally sized squares. I turned them so that I have kind of this snowflake sort of a pattern here. I used a little leftover piece of my cardstock from here, and I put behind my topper. I added 4 AB rhinestones to the corners, and then I glittered in and around my penguins at the bottom. And I think this card's just as adorable as it can be, but it's made. The only topper on here is this little 2-inch snowman.
Yeah, it's
and
really
you just don't notice that it's a little topper.
Now, what do you mean by AB rhinestones?
That's the Aurora Borealis rhinestones, which means that they pick up all the colors
And
surrounding
that's
them.
from Hunkydory, right?
That's from Hunkydory also. Again, we'll link those in the newsletter. And finally, and I just love this one, I made a card using this corner piece of my cardstock. And you've got this snowman with his hand out. And the whole theme of this kit was juggling penguins. So I had 1 penguin left from my from my piece of cardstock here, this little guy on the end actually. I cut him out, fussy cut around him. It really was a pretty easy cut. And I took my snowman, I cut him out, and I mounted it on some rainbow mirror board. I started to mount it squarely, and then I thought, I just want to do something else for interest, so I slanted it just a little bit.
That asymmetrical piece really makes it.
It does. It does. It takes a simple card and gives it an element of complexity it really doesn't have. I used the Merry Christmas from my I think from the Trees set of Sticker King. I took my little penguin that I had cut out and I put 2 layers of foam squares under him, and then I set him slightly above the penguin's hand as if he's tossing, above the snowman's hand, as if he's tossing him up in the air. I took some of my iridescent glitter. I glittered my snowman because of course he's made of snow, therefore he sparkles, and then I put little dots of glitter around in the sky to kind of just fill in the space and make it nice and finished looking, but I think it turned out adorable. So we got what from that? 4 cards, I think, from the...
4, and 2 of them are fairly large.
Yeah, from the Together Christmas set. It's called. Okay, our next set here is called Trimming Up Teddy. Now this is a really fun set. I love the way the teddy bears are all tangled up in these lights. I just think it's adorable. And who amongst us hasn't had that experience of feeling like you get all tied up in the Christmas lights?
We have a Christmas card right after Emma was born where we put all the Christmas lights around us as pictures, and she was holding on to the little lights. Looking up. It was really cute.
Oh.
So
There we go.
This is perfect. And don't you already get tangled up in Christmas lights when you hang them?
Yes, we all do.
We do.
We've got these 2 big toppers. We've got this long narrow topper. We've got this nice border and then a number of little buttons and sentiments. Now, I loved this piece. And I looked at this and I thought to myself, what am I going to do to retain this look? Because I just love that they're trying to straighten these lights out. This little teddy's kind of tangled up, and this guy's hopelessly tangled up, and I thought, oh, I got to do something special with that, so I did. Here's the final piece of cardstock, and on this one, I thought this was really fun because they had, you know, kind of tangled lights on both sides here, and I thought those looked fun too. Let's take a look at what we did with those. Let me show you this one first, because this was really fun. This one, in order to be able to retain that sense that they're trying to straighten them out, they're both tangled up, I made one folding card out of the whole thing. And I just think this is adorable. It took me a little bit to figure out the math to do this because I wanted this to fold into a 5x7. So let me tell you what I did. First of all, I cut my cardstock to 11 this way by 7 this way. Then I came in and I scored this at 5 inches. I came up and I scored again at what would be from the edge 8 inches. So I created a 3-inch fold over. And this folds then to a 5x7. And then I came in with my Nuvo Drops. And I had Nuvo Drops here in the shop from making the cow cards. I had red, blue, and yellow. I also happen to have a vial of green here in the shop. And I used the green, the red, and the blue on my lights. And even though I was using the blue, they came out, when I put the drops over the purple, they came out perfectly purple. So you can kind of double purpose some of that when you're going over another color. And even though I used green, I think I could have used the yellow over the top of the green. Since the green was a more intense color, I think that the yellow would have worked perfectly for that. So it's kind of dual duty for those of you who purchased the Nuvo Drops from us as part of that kit. Get those out, and they are wonderful on these Christmas lights. In addition to that, the only other thing I've done here was to add this this brushed gold Merry Christmas, and that's from Find It Trading. I'll link that for you in the newsletter. If you don't already have these Nuvo Drops, I'll link those in the newsletter as well. Cute card. Okay, this card here, I wanted to do a 5x5 gatefold. I thought this was perfectly situated for a gatefold, but we were out of 5x5 gatefold in the store. So I made my own. And I want to show you how I did that. It's a pretty simple process. I had a 5x5 or a 5x7 card, and lots of you already have the 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 envelopes that we use for our dot and do cards. So this would be really easy for you to make and to use with those envelopes you already have. So I didn't cut this one down, but for the sake of illustration, I would cut this down to 5 inches, and then I just took both of the flaps from that card and I folded to the fold in the center of the card. So I just bring them in and fold these. Bring this one in and fold it, but it right up against that first one, because you want your gatefold to have a nice tight center. And I've got my gatefold card. Now I would have, if I trimmed this off, I'd have a 5x5 gatefold, and that's how I created this.
I like it when you can make your own cards.
It's fun. It's fun when you can do that. It makes you really feel creative. To make my gatefold, I took the tangled lights from this side and from this side, cut those panels, and I just used the little teddy bear button in the middle. Then when you come to the inside of the card, I used that nice big topper on the inside. It's kind of unexpected to have the biggest element on the inside, which I thought was kind of fun. I used a piece of my border that was left over from the trimmings here, from when I made this card, the 5x7 card. I had a piece left over. I took that and I covered my fold. Now, it just looks like a nice finishing touch on the inside of my card, but it serves dual duty. One is it provides a nice finish, but two, it hides that fold mark that was there before I created my gatefold. So I think this turned out really cute. On here, I didn't try to highlight all of the little dots. I certainly could have, but some of these are real pronounced and some of them are kind of faded in. I went over the really pronounced lines with my Nuvo Drops. And once again, it's just wonderfully tactile. It's a card that makes you want to run your fingers over all the little dots.
Enjoyed by adults and children alike.
Yes. Okay. This one, I had this nice big topper piece left, and the cardstock I had left big enough to handle it at this point was this piece. I put that topper on the red and I thought, it's nice, but it just was a little bit boring because everything was red. So once again, I used one of my trim pieces off of here. I cut just a little 1/2-inch strip of that, and I butted it right up against the red cardstock and created a border right across the top of my card with the blue, and then it actually looked really nice. All I did then was just add this little button, and once again I added my Nuvo Drops, and I think it's just cute as a button. I love that. One more. Sometimes these tall, skinny toppers can be a challenge to use. So I kind of used Margie's idea here, and I ran the border piece that I still had this piece here. I ran that border down and back across. I put one of my little sentiments, or it's a little button, the teddy bear with the reindeer horns, up on some foam squares on top of that. And I just added that side topper here, and I think that turned out really, really cute. Then, of course, I came in with my Nuvo Drops and made all of these little, even this on the border, I put dots on all of that because it was fun. And that's it for that set. I think we got 4, including 1 full sheet card.
I love the Nuvo Drops because they're so versatile.
They are so versatile. Margie's the one that really got me using the Nuvo Drops. Our next set's called A Jolly Christmas. It's got Santa and his reindeer and a bag full of toys. He is set and ready for the evening. We've got 3 big toppers here. We've got some nice sentiments here. Beautiful. We've got a background here that's got 2 really great corners on it. And we've got this Santa in the corner and this beautiful plaid paper. Let's see what we did with these. This one I thought was fun. On this one, I used one of those corners and I covered a 5x7 card. I trimmed it down just a little bit, I believe. Let's look and see if I didn't, because it looks like I did. I sure did. It's a 6.5 by 5. So I trimmed that down just a little bit. And the first thing I did after I covered my card was I used a piece of those Starform star borders, and I came along this white line down at an angle. So I've got these wonderful stars on this really wide white line. I used my two smaller toppers here. I used a stocking and some stars off of the Starform sheet. I used some presents off of the Starform sheet up here. And all I did was put these guys up on some foam squares. I let the Starforms do a lot of the extra work on this one in order to fill this space. And I thought that worked out really, really well on this card. Next up, I have this fun one. On the other corner, I did the similar thing. I took my 5x7 card. Let's see if I cut this one down. I did not cut this one down. This is a true 5x7. I used the opposite corner and I ran my Starform star borders across. And then I took another piece of that Starform star border and I came across here. I glittered up Santa's beard and his cuffs and his jacket, and just put some very subtle little glitter techniques in here. I broke my frame apart. I recessed the Santa and the reindeer, and I put the frame around the outside as if it's a true picture frame framing the Santa and the reindeer. I put my sentiment tag up on the corner here, and I put some foam squares under this side so that it would lay flat. And I used that absolutely gorgeous red and blue woven iridescent ribbon to create this beautiful bow at the bottom for Santa. And then I had a few, again, these star borders have these little tiny stars inside. And this is, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but this has stars in this background and stars in the frame. So I thought it would be fun to just kind of use those little stars. I put a few of them in the sky here, and then I scattered them around on the cardstock down below here just to kind of give things a finished look. And I thought that turned out really, really cute.
It did. And you used the shaker card foam tape on that instead of just doing little squares, which made it really smooth.
I did. Sometimes I do that, just depending on what's sitting there, as long as I have plenty of shaker tape. A lot of times under these angled ones, the shaker tape is easier to get a smooth finish with, because you can kind of run that up and around. And yeah, I did.
I like it.
Thank you. Okay, next up, this card was really crying out for some additional green, and I have to be candid, I did not have this sheet in my card pack. It just wasn't included. Hunkydory is really good, and most of the time everything everything is as it's supposed to be, especially given the number of pieces in their kits.
Yeah.
It's remarkable how often they get it right. But my kit that I was using did not include this piece of cardstock. Had it, I might have used this in the background, but I had something of a dilemma because I had this green, and then I thought, oh, I've got my Hunkydory magazine, and it's got some papers in it. Let's see what we have. And we had this wonderful selection of papers in here. Let's just flip through those, yeah. Including, that happened to be the one I used right there. I used the foliage one, but there's lots of beautiful papers in here. These are actually printed to match the Craftaganza set, guys. So when you're getting extra cards from a kit, or if you end up with a dilemma like I had, which doesn't happen very often, but it does happen once in a while, then it's a good resource to go to get other pieces that are printed to match. And most of you who bought the Craftaganza set also have the magazines, so don't forget to use your magazine pieces. On this one, I took our forest green woven ribbon, the woven iridescent ribbon, and I tied myself a 3-loop bow. And then I interspersed rows of my iridescent ribbon with gold Mary board. And I made 3 rows of ribbon across, and I used 2 little pieces of Mary. Doesn't it give that an elegant finish? I thought that was really pretty. Now I did all of that on this piece. I actually mounted that lighter weight paper on a piece of cardstock so that I could wrap around it. And my ribbons go around that cardstock, and they're secured on the back so that the inside of my card is clean. But this was an improvisation, but I think it turned out really pretty. In fact, I think it's one of the prettiest pieces in the set. So using that
and we
green,
didn't know it was green to begin with, because we didn't know what page it was.
Green iridescent ribbon, but it turned out beautiful. This little topper is, is looping over the top of my frame again, so I've got foam squares under this edge to make sure that it stands up nicely. And if you use shaker tape underneath this, be sure you use shaker tape under the corresponding little sentiment, because regular foam squares are a little bit lower than the shaker tape. This is 3mm deep, so I thought that turned out really cute. By the way, if you guys ever encounter this, contact me. I can probably send you the missing piece of card, and then I take it up with Hunkydory. So it's one of the things you get when you shop with us. You get that extra element of customer service. This next set is called Snow Much Fun. We've got skiing penguins, guys. Skiing penguins. This is me skiing. I spend most of my time trying to get up.
Do they have one that's in the lounge drinking the hot cocoa and watching it? Because that would be my penguin.
Oh, that would be your penguin. Okay, here's our skiing penguins again. Nice snow foiling across the top of this one. This is a really playful piece of cardstock, but it works really well with this particular kit. I looked at that, I thought, that doesn't look very Christmassy, but it works really, really well with these toppers. Let's see what we did. I think we both
kind of looked at it and went, but they turned out beautiful.
They were cute. Okay, on this one, I took a 5x7 card and some of that wild cardstock. Oops. Bryce has got a placeholder for me here, so I keep my cards in the middle of the table. He's chasing me with the camera. We've got I covered that 5x7 in some silver mirror board. Then I cut this just slightly smaller to have it framed in the Mary. And I just used that piece right there. I punched my 3-piece topper set out, and I glued my largest frame down to my card. I turned the center on edge and glued that to be at an angle over the top. And then I put this one square inside, and it kind of is surrounded then by that star. And this bright yellow iridescent woven ribbon worked really fun with these colors. And then here's my sentiment tag on top. It was a really simple card to do, but it actually looks more complicated than it is. And I thought this one was really fun. Here's our corner off our cardstock. I've taken a European A6. I've covered it with silver mirror board. I've cut my topper slightly smaller to let that mirror board show around. Here's my bright winter wishes, and once again, just in the spirit of things, because this has such bright colors, I used a bright orange ribbon. I think that was called Bittersweet, but that shiny iridescent ribbon really works well. And then I glittered up around my penguins a little bit, around the edges of their skis, and just a little bit in the snow, a little bit in the sky, just for fun. Okay, here's another topper piece. Now I've done something kind of interesting here. This one I've taken a European A6, but I turned my snow upside down. Why? Why not? I wanted it to show, and I wasn't sure it'd show enough at the top, so it shows at the bottom. It's cute. And of course we're in the snow, so why not? I've covered my card with silver mirror board. I flipped my snow upside down so you could see it under the penguins. I tied an extra fancy bow here. This one's done in that, what is this one called? This is the bird one, or the canary? What's that one called? Parrot green. This is called parrot green. And I thought actually that matched pretty well. This is to both of you. And it's got, oh, this one's got more than one penguin on the ground. That may be us. Skiing. But cute card.
I'll just lay in the snow and drink my hot chocolate.
Okay.
I'll
and this
break
final
something
one.
if I go skiing.
This final one had this bright border around it. I thought it looked particularly great with the bright border on the background. So I didn't do a lot of fanciness to it. There's so much color going on here that my caution would be keep these pretty simple because there's a lot going on in the pattern. So I just broke this into 3 pieces, glued that down flat, put this and this up on some foam squares, tied one of those bright bittersweet woven iridescent ribbons, and brought my tag out from underneath, and I think it's really, really cute, but it didn't want any more than that. This next set's called Happy Christmas, My Dear, and it has this charming, wonderful little deer, and they have a really interesting rose gold sort of foiling on this one that I thought was really pretty. It also has brown accents that I thought would play really nicely with the craft cardstock, and so that's what I've used on here. I have 2 large toppers and then a number of little ones. We have the deer and those fun little trees there. And then I love this cardstock. I thought this was really, really pretty. It's got that rose gold foiling, some stars. I think they're supposed to be snowflakes, but they kind of look like stars here, and the foliage along the edges. I think that's really pretty. Well, you know me. Every time I see that foiling on both edges, I think gatefold card. So that's where I started. Now, once again, I did not have a 5x5 gatefold card, but I did have a 5x7 craft card. So you know what I did. I took that craft card, I folded both sides to center, just like I showed you a few minutes ago, and I cut it off at 5 inches, and I created myself a 5x5 gatefold card. I brought the 2 sides. Actually, I think this looks beautiful, the way the scallops come together. I think this little strip down the center ends up being really, really pretty when you bring this in from this direction. And then just cut this to fit the panel. So these are going to be 2.5-inch panels either direction. And then with that scallopy deer on the top, it works. It just works. I took my Quickie glue pen and I followed the vines to give some nice iridescent shine to the vines on both sides. I did the same thing on the topper, and then I used iridescent accents on the trees and right under the deer. It looks very nice and sparkly, but the sparkle's not overdone. It doesn't take over, it just really accents this card, and I think it's beautiful. On the inside, now this had this ring around this topper. It had this brown ring. So what I did on the inside is I used a piece of cardstock from here on the inside, and then I used my ring to create my signature panel. And I thought that was really fun.
I like that you put a little tag here just for the fun of it.
I do. A lot of times when I do a gatefold card, I like to put something unexpected under this flap. Why? I don't know. I just started doing it years ago, and it just has become kind of a trademark to put those there. But that's just something fun and unexpected. Now on the back of, because I was doing this whole thing on the craft cardstock, I did cover the back of this tag that I'm putting on the front. I covered it in brown cardstock. It was a really easy fussy cut to cut that so that this did not stand out as a piece that didn't belong there. It looks like it belongs because it has the same cardstock on the back. So I'll often do that when I do a gatefold card. Create something to bring that together with the rest of the card. Okay, here's our little deer off the corner. And I've done the same thing here. This is some of the some of the brown craft card is lighter weight. This one is a lighter weight card. But I love the color of it with this. I've taken this piece of cardstock and I've left a border of the brown showing around it. I've already said I sparkled these trees just because I thought they were fun and festive looking and they really needed to be kind of playful and sparkly. And I've used pieces of my border across the top and the bottom with my little Happy Christmas, My Dear topper there. Love this.
This is my favorite set out of the group. But you put pink and rose gold in something, who wouldn't love it? I mean, me.
Now, the craft card from Paper Mania. This is a 6x6 Paper Mania card. And I've said that some of the craft card is fairly lightweight, almost grocery bag weight. These darker ones. But these ones from Paper Mania are actually pretty weighty. But I like the dark with this. So what I did is I used the dark card on top of the Paper Mania card and just let the two colors of brown show, which was nice because the deer is kind of variegated brown anyway. And I cut a piece of this into 1-inch squares. And I cut those squares in half diagonally to create these little corners to make this topper fit the bigger card. And then I used my ruler and drew across with my quickie glue pen. I just drew a line. I drew a line right at the edge of that. And I drew a line just maybe 1/8 of an inch in. And I put my little iridescent glitter there too, just to give it another little finishing touch. My tree is sparkly. I've got little sparkles around the base of my deer. I've got this topper set broke into 3 pieces. But this is the layering of the two craft cardstocks and the creation of these little corners is what I think really sets this topper off and makes this particularly fun.
At first when I saw it, I thought, wow, that is the tiniest little narrow sticker. And then I realized what you had done. You'd used your glue. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it was so simple just to use my ruler and draw a pen line with that quickie glue pen and then quickly sprinkle some glitter on it. And it really does give it a really nice finish. This is the red and blue iridescent woven ribbon. Pretty, pretty. And then I had this one little topper left, and it was too cute to waste. It had that cute little robin on it. So once again, it was a matter of taking that little piece and making it bigger. Now I didn't have a lot left at this point. I had already covered my card, my gatefold card with a lot of this. So I only had these little pieces left. So I took these little pieces that I had left over. I glued them onto a larger card. I joined them in the middle, and you would never know unless I was telling you that these were joined. They're just cut nice and even with my trimmer, and I butted them right up against each other. I took that little tiny topper, put it up on some foam squares, tied a little bow, glittered up those vines, and I think it's, once again, just a super cute little winter card, and it's made out of scrap.
We really worked hard to get the most out of these cards as we possibly could.
We could. Let's set them all up and see what we did in part 2.
Okay.
This has been part 2 of the Santa and Friends set from Craftaganza 2020. And out of part 2, we got 19 cards from this part of the set. We had 23 cards from the first part of this set. So what is that? 42 cards in total from the Santa and Friends set. That's pretty good, since Hunkydory says we'd get 20. We got 42 cards, so we a little more than doubled what Hunkydory says we would get from this set. And we have some really spectacular, fun, and unusual techniques in some of these cards. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did a lot of work.
We did
Lots.
we did a lot of work on these kits, but we had a great time doing it, didn't we?
We stayed up nights.
Okay, so we'll be back and see you soon with one of our other Craftaganza kits, Debbie and Margie from SimplySpecialCrafts, and we'll see you next time.